got Woody in there. Y'all can monitor it on your computer if you want to. And I'll relay the chat box, if anybody has any questions about what we're going to do tonight. So I've got Rodney's in there, bass angler. Michael Anderson from Lenore City's in there. Phil Makes Videos is in. Woody's in there. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to get started then. Welcome to the episode number 4 of the Photographers Roundtable, where we get on here and we talk about everything and anything that has to do with cameras or software or illegal drugs or anything like that. Okay. So
we're branching out.
Yeah. Anyways, I want to welcome Johnny Pink or John Knowles. Is that how we say it? John Knowles?
That's it.
Okay. John Knowles is from California. So tell us a little bit about yourself and so the group can figure out who you are.
Well, I am a musician. That was always my, what I did. And photography to me is always like music. It's just a creation. I feel like I'm being interviewed. I'm on the spot here. But
it's going to get good in a minute.
Because photography it's a creation, right? And each of us has something that we like to shoot. Some people are fantastic at weddings or events. And me, I'm not a birder. I'm just someone who loves wildlife. I'm a photographer who likes to shoot wildlife. And it doesn't matter what you shoot, how you shoot, as long as it makes you happy and you go out and you do it. And one of my favorite sayings to a lot of people is, the most beautiful artwork that you will ever see at a parent's house is their child's artwork that they did at school and is up on the refrigerator. It's artwork. It's absolutely beautiful. It might mean nothing to somebody else, but to that parent, it is amazing. So that's me. I'm just someone who loves to go out and take photographs and make music as much as I can. I still get ripped off on music, but at least I'm making the music I want. And there's no telling me no.
I think my introduction to John came through James, and James hit me up back just at the end of COVID, and he and his family were planning a trip to the Smoky Mountains, and COVID kind of knocked it out for them. They didn't come, and I started following James on YouTube. So how did, just out of curiosity, how did you and James connect? How did you find each other?
Way back after the crash of, when the economy crashed, I was working 2 or 3 jobs just to survive, and one of them was at a bicycle shop, and he was one of the people. Since I worked there, I led their advanced ride, and him and his brother showed up, and we started talking, and we really, really hit it off. And he was interested in some of the photography things and how the bokeh worked and how to do it. And that's really where we started. We just became friends.
Yeah.
Is he Forced Perspective? Is that
yes,
who
he is?
is?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I subscribe to him.
Yeah, I asked him. I think he works, doesn't he? Has a job. He doesn't get off too early.
Right. Yeah.
I'd asked him to be on the show before, and he wanted to, but he didn't. He couldn't fit it into the time frame that we have it on. So, anyways, that's cool. I just wanted to find out a little bit about that. So, in tradition, Mr. Pink, okay, we have everybody who's everybody.
I want to interrupt you there. He and I were doing an event one time, and the envelope that they handed me at the end of the gig said Mr. Pink.
Where'd the name Johnny Pink come from?
Way back when I was probably in my late 20s. I had a really, really long beard. Came down to about mid-chest, longer than that. And I had bleached it bright white. One of my favorite colors is pink, like a Pepto-Bismol pink. And I don't care what anybody says about it. And so I had dyed everything pink. And one of my friends looked at me, laughed, and said, Johnny Pink. And that's where it came from.
All right. Well, in the tradition of newness, okay, we have this little thing we do called the rapid fire questions, okay? And we only have 17 of the questions, okay?
Okay.
And there's very simple answers. You don't have to elaborate. You can just give a single word answer if you like, okay? So whatever pops into your head first. Here's the first question: Canon, Nikon, or Sony?
For me, it's Canon, but I like old Nikons and the color. The Nikon has always had my favorite color baked into it. Sony, what I didn't used to like about them was the really digital look that they had. But with the A6700, their color got just so much better.
All right.
In the files.
Okay. Crop sensor or full frame?
Each has uses depending on what you're shooting.
That wasn't what he asked.
We don't take the middle road in this group.
Which do you prefer? Which do you prefer, crop sensor or full frame?
Again, I have no preference over either.
Okay.
I like them both.
DSLR or mirrorless?
Oh, mirrorless.
Wide angle or telephoto?
Telephoto.
RAW or JPEG?
Both. I shoot in both.
Golden hour or blue hour?
Being an early person, I like the mornings better.
I do too. Tripod or handheld?
I prefer to go handheld because it offers more freedom.
Auto white balance or preset?
Depends on what I'm shooting. For wildlife, I always go auto, but if it's an event, I will set my white balance so everything is consistent.
Landscape, wildlife, or street?
Wildlife.
Your favorite YouTuber?
Oh man.
Think carefully about this one.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be me.
Well, my favorite YouTuber, that's really hard. It probably has nothing to do with photography, but more about the mindless guys that do their off-road trucking, or this young English kid that builds rockets and model planes.
Okay. Have you ever been recognized in public because of your YouTube channel?
Yes, a lot. And it's actually really cool. And that's why I say all the time, I love it when people come up and say hi to me. I love it.
Where would you go if you had a free plane ticket to anywhere?
Probably back
Tennessee.
to Hawaii.
Back to where?
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Good answer, Phil.
Shoot first, edit later, or get it right in the camera?
Oh, I try and get it right in the camera, but a lot of times I'll just take a shot. If there's a shot, I'll take it, right or wrong.
Editing in Lightroom or Photoshop?
Lightroom Classic is my favorite.
Okay, and they get a little bit tougher here. There's only 3 more left, okay?
20 is fine.
The guy in the top left corner failed the first time.
My left or your left, because my left is me.
Phil Vignola.
There is no fail here. There's only degrees of correctness.
Oh, yeah, no, wait a minute. At the end, I'll tell you what he said.
Okay.
Most overused photography trend.
Oh, wow. I really have to think about that. Most overused photography trend. Probably going after the newest camera gear or thinking you need something new.
Agree.
Favorite photography rule to break?
Rule of thirds.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you on that one. The biggest pet peeve about other photographers?
And I'm probably guilty of this too, thinking that you're better than somebody else, and you're really not. It's artwork. I try and remind myself and ground myself all the time on that.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what Phil Vignola failed on big time with me. He don't like photographers that do waterfall photography.
Oh, I love waterfall photography.
No, that's not true. I said the creamy waterfalls. I like the waterfalls with the droplets, and it's all a matter of taste. Like Johnny was saying, it's all art and it's subjective, and yeah.
And you know, a lot of people that photograph the waterfalls, they like to make it really creamy. I like a fast shutter. I like that water being frozen in midair. That's what I would do.
There we go.
Yeah. So if you talk to each one of us have dabbled, well, the majority of us may have dabbled in it, but each one has their favorite shutter speed for doing waterfalls. I know Phil he likes to do half a second. Isn't that right, Phil? He likes
Yeah,
half a second.
I mean, it depends on the flow, but usually if you half a second usually will look
Yeah,
good.
myself, I like more. I like it. I like creamier. So I do like 1 second, and maybe 2 seconds. Just depends on the lighting. But very rarely do I do a half a second. Okay, very rarely. So there's just different ways of photographing it. So, anyways,
It's okay to be wrong, Ron.
Pardon?
It's okay to be wrong.
Anyways,
there is no wrong.
We're all wrong once, right?
I got to keep those questions. Anyways, you passed. Okay, congratulations. We'll give you a gold star.
Thank you.
It's just a fun thing we did, kind of break the ice a little bit, and it's just a fun thing to do. There's no right or wrong answers in there. It's interesting to hear what the answers are, though.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I wanted to talk about a couple things tonight, and I kind of had an order here, but I may shuffle this around because there is some Nikon stuff involved tonight. I'm gonna push it to the end of the video, so it's not too boring in the beginning. Okay, but I was thinking about something the other day. I know the majority of you, especially the wildlife photographers, and probably the most of us, are using some kind of denoise software, whether it be the Lightroom denoise or Topaz or DxO, Pure Raw, whatever. Okay, but my question is to the group is: are you using the denoise at the very beginning of your edit, or after you've done some basic editing to your photograph? And I'm going to start off with Phil Bignola up here in the top left.
To actually use it first. And I'm not sure there's any correct answer here, but I feel like doing it, well, actually, I have to, most of the time I do it first, and then some of the times, depending on how noisy it is, I might do it last. It depends on how much I have to raise the shadows, probably is the answer for me.
What
So
software?
I used a DxO. So if I've got a well-exposed image, I might not even noise reduce it at all. But if it's kind of where I have to raise the shadows, a lot of times I'll shoot birds in shadows, and a lot of people won't take those shots. I still take a shot. If I've got a pretty bird in a good setting, even if it's in the shadows, I'll take that shot, and then I'll probably do the noise reduction at the end after those shadows are raised, just so I can gauge how much I need to actually raise how much noise reduction I have to use.
Okay. Personally, I do it both times, both two different ways. It just depends on how I feel about it. I don't think there's a wrong way either. I know a lot of people, if you listen to like Anthony Morgani and some of these other people that talk about stuff like that, they'll say do it first, do it up front, and then do your edits. I personally have never. Well, let me clarify something here. I've never seen anything detrimental to a cell phone picture. Okay, if you get what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be denoised to see it. Okay. Now sometimes it's pretty radical. Okay, I mean you have to do something. How about you, Phil T? When do you usually do it?
I import into Lightroom. I edit all my pictures. I'll do every one in a batch. And then when I get completely all my pictures are edited, then I send them all to a program that's not even available to purchase anymore. A program called Topaz Denoise AI. They no longer support it, which is lovely because there's new version. Lightroom will send a 16-bit TIFF to Denoise, and I just do it on the automatic settings unless something doesn't look good back. And 19, 23, 7, all there at once. And you know what? If the picture is not noisy, I send it through there anyway. That sounds crazy. Why in the world are you sending a picture that doesn't have a lot of noise through a denoise program? And the reason I do is because I like the way Topaz Denoise sharpens. I don't use the sharpen slider in Lightroom. I turn that thing all the way to 0, and I let Topaz Denoise AI do my denoise and my sharpen in one swell foop, and off to the races.
Are we all hearing the same thing I'm hearing with Phil?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep,
Woody
yeah.
just, I was thinking it was my computer at first, but
Me too.
Woody just
You're
noted it.
Phil, it's almost like what was happening the other night. You're cutting out and your video stopping and your voice is coming in and out. I don't know. I was just making sure everybody else was hearing the same thing.
Well, that's a real drag because I said a lot of cool stuff just now.
I felt it, Phil. I felt it.
Maybe
Yeah, yeah.
maybe it'll stabilize. We can come back to you. What about you, Tim?
I for denoise, I just use the denoise in Lightroom Classic because I I don't worry about denoising too much in the kinds of photography that I do. But when I do use it, it's generally after I've made some basic edits. It's kind of like white balance. If you change the exposure on your image, your white balance got to be fixed again. So I generally wait till I've done at least the whites and blacks and the highlights and the shadows to get kind of where I want the image to go. And I typically just sort of follow the pattern down, down the toolbar. So yeah, it's generally not all the way to the end, but it's kind of toward the end.
Double G?
Yeah. It's kind of rare, honestly, that I do a whole lot of denoise. But when I do it, I just use the denoise right in Lightroom, and I do it at the end of the process.
Are you saying that the D850 does such a good job at taking photographs? You just don't need denoise.
I'm saying, yeah, I shoot at ISO 64 and let the chips fall where they fall.
Yeah.
So you don't shoot wildlife then?
Shadows. No, he doesn't. He doesn't shoot. I don't think he does shoot wildlife.
Not much. Not much. I'd like to shoot more. We don't have a whole lot of wildlife in Yorkville, Illinois. Squirrels and geese.
Yeah, they get kind of boring after a while. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, that they do.
I do it at the end. I use the built-in tool. I'm the outlier here. I don't use Adobe products, so I'm the one oddball. But Darktable has a tool built in.
You were the oddball before that.
Well, that's true as well. But yeah, it's like Lightroom has a built-in denoise tool. Darktable has one too, and it works really well. Not as good as Lightroom, I got to admit. I was using Lightroom for a little while, and that denoise tool built into Lightroom was kind of weird how good it worked. I was kind of shocked. But yeah, I do it at the end. If I have one, I'm going to denoise it. That's when I do it.
Okay, John, how about you?
I follow the same process. I start at the top in Lightroom Classic. I get my colors to where I want them. A lot of times I'll start with auto and then adjust my exposure down from there, get my colors, use all the little tools that they have. I don't really care for a film look and the grain, so I will also use masks and pull the noise down a bit more, especially in the background, to make that subject pop out. And then at the very last process, I hit the Adobe Lightroom denoise, and I have that set usually on about 40, so it's not really doing much.
Yeah.
And adjust my exposure. And if I'm going to print something, posters or anything, I bump up the exposure just a little more to compensate for what a printing does when it goes a little bit darker.
It's so good to hear another auto user in Lightroom, because that is poo-pooed in the photography community at large, right? Don't hit auto because auto's a good place to start. Yeah.
I always hit auto.
Starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you listen to the YouTubers, right, they say don't hit auto. You got to just take control. Well, you can hit auto and then take control. So
exactly. Yeah. Well, I've been called clueless and dumb and terrible, mediocre at best. It's like, okay, well, show me some of the posters that you've printed and show me some of the work that you've done. And
exactly.
Proof is in the pudding, right?
Yeah.
They call you that because you start with auto?
I've never even mentioned, I'd like to do a video talking about my process, because people say, oh, your stuff is so sharp. Well, that's just the way I'm shooting it. And even with an entry-level lens or an entry-level body, which I love shooting, it's about experience and technique. As we all know, you take the best camera in the world, put it the most advanced, put it in a newbie's hands, and they're not going to get great shots. They're going to get shots that they like, but in someone that's been doing it for years and years and years, you put an entry level, whatever it is, in their hands, and they're going to get great shots. And the great shots, then when you edit them, you get great results.
And there's no substitute in wildlife for getting close, right? So you have to learn about what you're photographing in general overall, but specifically of wildlife. If you can get close to a subject, it doesn't matter, like you said, what camera you use. You could use a DSLR from, 2010 and still get good shots. You need to get close to your subject, and learning about the wildlife and learning about their environment definitely helps more than any other camera gear.
And
So I got a few comments here on the live chat on YouTube. Woody wants to know, Double G, did you have a chance to look at the waterfall video from Crabtree Falls that he sent?
Oh, no, I apologize, Woody. I've not seen that yet, but having just gotten back from like my first road trip, like in forever, I don't see another one coming up in the near future, but I will check out the video, and I would love to get out to that part of the country and do some shooting for sure.
Let's see, Joe. I got Joe on the chat here. Welcome, Joe. Joe said he uses DxO Pure Raw to pre-process almost everything. Okay. Maybe he'll comment in there what kind of photography he does, that he pre-processes everything with DxO Pure Raw. I had DxO Pure Raw. I still have an older version of it. I never upgraded to it. That was back before Topaz really come on the scene and got hot and heavy, was the one to get. I had both of those. Let's see. Michael Anderson says, "Oh, Pure Raw 5 is supposed to be released on the 14th of April." So whatever that means, more money. You want some money?
Yeah, they're sending emails if you own Pure Raw 4 to say upgrade now, and I don't really see any advantages to it. And I use DxO Studio, so I'm hoping maybe they'll roll that in, because I wasn't going to renew my Adobe subscription. But somebody, I was watching a YouTuber and he showed me a trick on Photoshop that I might want to use it at some point, so I did renew it. But I'm hoping that maybe that 5 will roll into the DxO Photolab 8. We'll see.
And then Terrell, who's on my channel, he's on all of our channels actually, off and on. When we do live streams, he uses Lightroom Classic Denoise, and he does it at the end of his process. So.
Smart guy.
I don't think it's a right or wrong way to do that. And back to what Phil V just said about Adobe. When I got the email in December, I've been an Adobe user for 6 or 7 years. Okay. And I don't mind paying them the $10 a month. I don't really mind that at all. That's a lunch. Okay. To me. And I like using their software. I don't agree with everything they do, but that's just the way the world is nowadays. Everybody's doing that. Even Microsoft, I had to pay Microsoft a license fee to keep using Office on my computer. Even though I owned an older version, it wasn't no good no more. So, I mean, they even gone to that kind of fee schedule. But in December, when we got the emails from Adobe, I went ahead and paid. I was on the monthly bill, where they just took it out of the checking account every month. I went ahead and paid for the whole year. And that locked me in now forever at that $10 price. Now, anybody else who came in after that or didn't do that, it's now $15 a month, or $14.99, whatever it is. So I did save some coin by doing it for a whole year, and I'll keep doing it. I don't mind paying them, $120 a year to use software that's kept up to date a lot. And they have come a long way in a lot of their tools. So
they really have. And in my previous life, I was a software person. And so I understand the cost of creating good software. I think Adobe does a great job with their software. Some of the practices behind the scenes about training AI and some of the stuff that they do behind the scenes doesn't really sit very well with me, but their product is great. I don't have a problem paying for a great product that continually gets upgraded, and they do a good job of that. But it's just some of their business practices I don't necessarily agree with, but
there's a lot of companies you may not agree with their business practices.
True.
I think you have a great product. And as far as video editing goes, they listened to their customers when DaVinci was kind of really, really digging into them with their video editing. And it's great, it's cheap, but I still prefer what Adobe offers and does as far as Premiere Pro. So because I use
my first Adobe product ever was Adobe Photoshop Elements. Well, it's before I was plagiarizing, it's CS1, 2, and 3.
Well, we don't have to say that here. Yeah.
That was pretty cool. Pirate Bay's gone. I think they're gone. But I used the Elements program, and I started using Adobe Premiere Elements for my video editing, and I have used it all the way up until this year, and I finally took the plunge and moved over to DaVinci Resolve, which had a learning curve for me. When you're 67 years old, things don't come as quickly as they used to. Can anybody agree with me on that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, it took me a while, and Tim has helped me some. I've asked Tim some, advice on some things I didn't understand, and then he kind of told me where to go find it. And I'm back to where I'm editing videos efficiently now, where, and I'm away from that Adobe Premiere Elements, which is a cut down video editor, really. It's like Windows Movie Maker, really. But it did a good job for a number of years. Okay. We got another one here. Tony Blackwell's in here. He says, I shoot landscape, macro, street with very little wildlife, and after importing into Lightroom, every image is then batch processed in pure raw and then edited in Lightroom. He shoots Nikon DSLRs and the Z's. Okay, mirrorless. That's an interesting comment. Okay.
It is, and actually, I would say that if you're going to use pure raw, I think probably the way to do it is batch process and then bring it into Lightroom, because if you do it through Lightroom, it's very disruptive to me for my workflow. So if you go into Lightroom and you want to denoise with DxO, you have to kind of go in and use it as a plugin and then select it, and then it brings you to this one. Basically, it creates a collection, and that one photo is in the collection. And if you've got a bunch of other photos that you're kind of, let's say you're 100 deep, you have to kind of go back and find out where you were after you've edited that. So to me, the problem with DxO is really it brings you out of your workflow unless you use Photolab, which is one of the reasons why I got Photolab, because it's all built into the workflow. But if you use Adobe Lightroom and then use DxO to do your denoising, unless you do a batch process at the beginning, it brings you completely out of your workflow. And to me, that's the biggest mark against DxO.
Yes, so I got another comment here from Joe. He says, Pure Raw uses custom sensor specific camera modules and lens modules to optimize the image. He goes on to say, you do need to make sure that the Lightroom or Photoshop ACR lens profile is disabled. Do you find that true?
I actually don't know if I disabled it, but I do know that the lens correction is phenomenal. I actually just did, I should do a video on this, but I actually just went through some, like with chromatic aberrations specifically. Sometimes my Sony lens, if I use my 1.4x, will get some chromatic aberrations. And DxO, if you use DxO Mark, it corrects it, not only like distortions, but the CA is just amazing.
Yeah. That's in Pure Raw now, right?
Pure Raw, yeah. I keep saying DxO, I mean DxO Pure Raw.
I understand. Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to move on to the next subject, unless anybody has anything they want to inject here that I've left out.
I do have a question. I shoot both JPEG and RAW at the same time because I like to quickly look at what I have when I dump everything to the computer. What do you guys do? I'm just curious, different workflows.
I would just shoot raw.
Just shoot raw and you look at them then in whatever program you're using.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm all raw.
Yeah. Normally what I do is just bring it in, and what I'll do my first pass, especially if it's wildlife stuff, even landscape stuff. I'll put the caps lock key on in Lightroom, and I'll keep my finger on the X and my finger on the right arrow key. And I just kind of go through all 200,000 pictures I just took. And I call them right there, but I don't delete. Yeah, well, not that many, but it's a lot. It can be
lot.
a lot. I've been known to have a very controlled trigger finger. Okay, there have been some people that heard me shoot online, and they made a comment. I think Rodney made a comment one time about controlling the shutter button. I don't burst out 10 or 20 at a time. I'll burst out 3 or 4.
I think that's an interesting, maybe not for tonight, but maybe we should put that on the backlog because I shoot single shot mechanical shutter, and I know very few wildlife photographers who do the same, but I would rather miss a shot than have a shot that's, especially with some of like the R7, the rolling shutter is pretty bad. My A7CR, the rolling shutter is horrific. So I would just rather shoot and try to grab the moment, and I miss often, probably more often than I grab it, but I would rather have a shot that's better out of the camera than deal with the kind of
Yeah, we'll put that on the episode 5. Listen, Joe, before we leave the denoise thing, Joe's got one more thing here. He has it output a DNG raw file to then further process it in Lightroom and Photoshop if needed. If you do need to make sure that the Lightroom or Photoshop ACR lens profiles are disabled. So he is saying that. So you might want to check into that and maybe report back, Phil, on the episode 5 if you find any findings on that.
I definitely will, yeah.
Okay, so the next thing I wanted to kind of delve into tonight is editing ethics. Okay, and basically, it's about 4 things that I had come up with, and I'll ask each one of you how you feel about altering photos, removing branches, trees, or people. Okay, from your photo, removing distracting elements. And as far as going all the way out to my favorite thing, sky replacement. Okay. So let's start off the bottom here with John and see what he has to say.
I am a purist. I personally, and again, it's all personal taste, I really like seeing my wildlife buried in there as long as I have one eye that's sharp. And Heather had some amazing shots on one of your videos, Phil. Those, wow, just mind-blowing. That's my style. I'm not a fan. It's an artwork all unto its own, but I am personally not a fan of doctoring or altering, other than maybe changing the tone of the sky. I'm a purist. I took that shot. I love it. I'll edit it and not use my rule of thirds to move my bird over this way so you still have branches. That's just me. That's what I do.
How about you, Dave?
I'm similar to John in that I did dabble in the light and the sky replacement when it first came out just to see. I played with it, but I haven't done it in years because it just seemed like I'm not taking that picture. And as far as like if there's a distracting element in a frame, a lot of times I'll crop around to cut it out. I'm not big on cloning stuff out just because it's a lot of work for me, you know. So I shoot in JPEG and RAW mainly because I stow the RAWs and never touch them again, and I get the JPEGs and use them straight out of camera.
Awesome.
But you know, I'm the guy who likes to get it right in camera. That's my preferred thing because I'm a minimalist editor. So a lot of this stuff you guys talk about, I've never heard of this DxO RAW thing you talk about. Never heard of it till tonight. I'm serious.
It's okay,
Next.
David. It's okay, David. How about you, Double G?
Well, you're hitting on an interesting topic. Sky replacement. I'm not one that goes there. I'm all for if you need to clone something out, shorten a tree branch, whatever. I see that as like removing a dust spot on your or a spot on your sensor. Just clone it out. That's not a big deal to me. I could care less. I do it. This guy here, I've had it forever. The sensor's been cleaned twice, and I do have dust spots all over the place. And I got to clone them out, all the time. But when it comes to sky swaps and composites and all that, I mean, and this could be a couple hours discussion with some people that are into photography right in and of itself, but call it what it is. And, when you start combining elements from different images, I don't know, and, I might be the lone wolf on this, but I don't see that as one image, and I see that as digital art, and it is art,
Yeah.
but don't call it a photograph, in my opinion. Now, where do you draw the line? I don't know. I'm not smart enough to answer that question, but yeah, as far as I mean, and everybody will make the argument, hey, Ansel Adams, he edited his images and all that, but he's not taking the moon from one picture and the mountains from another and putting them all together. And so, yeah, I'm all for editing. But when you go to, swapping out skies and composites, that's still art, and it's usually amazing and beautiful and all that, but call it what it is. That's where I'm at. I'm
Well,
off my
you,
soapbox now.
okay. How about you, Tim?
Well, I'm not a documentarian. And so anytime I take a photo and I'm editing it as more as an artist than a photographer a lot of times. I don't mind color shifts. I don't mind, taking AI remove tools and getting a trash can out of the picture, or if I wanted a scene with nobody in it, but I've got, you know, 25 people standing around, I'll take 15, 16, sometimes 20 different images and then combine them into Photoshop to get as much of the people out of the picture as possible. And then I'll just clone out the rest of them, whatever shadows might be left. And I don't usually comment when I do those things, but I did experiment with the sky replacement. I'm not really Ron and I joked about it a little bit the other day because we were down in Sweetwater, well, up in Sweetwater for me, um, doing some street photography, and the sky was just awful. I mean, it was just bright
Bluebird.
blue, no clouds anywhere, nothing. Um, and I kind of joked around about putting a fake sky in, but I have one image that I really over processed, and I over processed it on purpose, and that's an image of the Pantheon in Rome. And I replaced the sky in that picture because I was looking to get more of a painting than a picture. But anytime I've used that image, I've always said that I have added the sky. It's pretty easy to tell if you're a photographer, but those kinds of things I don't use without claiming responsibility for it. If I clone out a trash can, I'm not telling anybody I did that. I don't care. Um, but if I am, especially with sky replacement, I will do that. I've taken a couple of pictures before, long exposure of a dock on a lake with a little bit of a rise on the other side of the lake, taking that shot with a wide angle lens, and then I have zoomed into the other side to get the mountains to be higher and composited that together so that it's more interesting. I mean, I did talk about that because it was an experiment I was playing around with. Um, one of the things that I do a lot is use the transform tool to line things up, because I have a real problem of being able to stand in the center of something. I don't know what it is about my depth perception, but I'm almost always to one side somewhere. And
Me
so I
too.
will straighten all the lines out because I just like that look, but I don't talk about doing that. But
Mhm.
again, it's the picture that I took, but it's not the picture that I made. And so in Lightroom and in Photoshop, I'm making the picture. That's kind of where I'm at. I've said way too much, but that's kind of where I'm at.
I think I think I got it figured out, Tim. Why I can't get my camera level. I think I got it figured out. Okay. I
Yeah.
read this somewhere when I was in high school in biology class where a human's arms are not the same length, like their legs.
Yeah.
So you got your camera up here. You're
Well, that's true to a point, but even on a tripod with the level turned on my camera, when I pull it in the Lightroom, I'm still not level.
I know. And I've been conscious about using my display now with the little green line. But
Yeah.
it must be when you push your shutter button, your camera must just at the moment you push the shutter button. Hey Phil T, it's your turn.
Well, I hope you can hear me. Can you
Oh
hear me?
yeah. Yeah, we can
Oh,
hear you
cool.
fine. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I'm all over the place with it. I will if I take a picture of a hummingbird flying next to a hummingbird feeder, I'm cloning that hummingbird feeder out 100%. But if there's a stick in my picture and I won't say, hey, I cloned out that hummingbird feeder, or maybe I will, but I won't say it every single time. But if there's a stick in my picture and I change that stick with AI, I think AI is the key. If I use AI, I feel like I have to say in my video, here's this woodpecker, and over here was a stick, and I took it out with AI, or I changed the stick with AI, which you can do. But I mean, you know what I mean? I just take the picture and hope it looks good, and if it doesn't, I do everything I can to make it look good. I don't do sky replacement just because I don't mind a bluebird sky, and I don't mind a gray sky or a white sky. I don't know. I should talk about my introduction
There he goes again.
workflow now so that you can hear me.
Yeah,
Your audio is breaking up, but your video is frozen.
Oh, did it go again?
Yeah, but we can hear you. We just can't see your now you're coming back. It's you must have got something going on with your internet at the house or something. Maybe Heather's over there doing some high powered homework.
Well, she is. She's on, and I'm on with two cameras. I turned my phone off.
Yeah. Anyway,
So,
it's okay.
anyway.
You just fade.
I'll just be
No,
quiet.
you're not gonna do that. Okay. So for me, I don't use sky replacement, and it's only because my photography doesn't really require it. If I'm out doing a landscape shot of a barn, let's say at sunrise, I'm not doing sky replacement in there. What I'm doing is I'm waiting until the right morning, and I may go out there time and time and time and time again until I get the photograph I'm looking for. And it may not happen. I know this one barn I visit, it starts in July. July to me is like the best time to take sunrise pictures anywhere in the world. But I'll spend the whole month of July. First thing I do when I get up in the morning, my bedroom window faces the east, I open the blinds and look outside. If I see clouds, I get my camera bag and a cup of coffee and I jump in my truck, and 5 minutes later I'm standing in front of the barn. So I've shot like that, but I do spend a lot of time in editing. I love to edit, okay? And a lot of my editing is mainly luminance values, dodging and burning type techniques, mainly with mask and what have you, linear gradients, radial gradients, making one part of the scene a little bit brighter than the other part. Nothing more than what Ansel Adams used to do, except I'm doing it on the computer. And I can make a photograph look like the sun is coming from whatever direction you want it to come from, okay? Just by changing subtly bits and pieces. I was fortunate to have somebody teach me some Lightroom stuff in person, okay? And one of the things that they did teach me that I went away with is when you are applying any kind of targeted adjustments to your photograph in Lightroom, or Photoshop, mainly in Lightroom, Photoshop, turn down your opacity on the brush. If you're working with layer mask and you're brushing and stuff, do it subtly. Don't start at 100%. Start at 20% and brush in. And I try to teach people in the camera club this. You got to focus on the image on one piece of your image, okay, and do it that way. So I do know a lot of people in our camera club that do sky replacements, and when they do it, it's pretty noticeable. Okay, you know it was sky replacement. Okay, you
So
can tell.
I have a confession to make. I've
Okay.
never edited a photo in Photoshop.
Okay.
So I guess that kind of tells you. So I am not, I'm all for art and I'm all for, I love composites. I've seen some composites that are great. I don't shoot landscape very often. So it's not really, for me, it's not a thing. As far as my like bird photography goes, I'm like Johnny and others. I'll present the scene as it was. However, if I'm going to alter it, I will say, and I'll usually post, so here is the original and here's the edited photo. So I'll take sticks out, and those types of things. But I really, and generally I won't go through that process unless I'm going to print it. So if it's for me and for my photography, I'll do whatever I want to do with it, obviously. And I think we're probably all the same. But as far as posting online, so you can, maybe some of you have seen my photos. I don't claim that I create the best photos ever, but what I create is mostly true to life. So I'm more documentarian than an artist, and I'm more technical than artistic. And I tend to present things in that way. However, if I do alter it, and I have before, I will say, I removed a stick and look, check the comments for the original. But I think all's fair in photography and art. If you call it,
Yeah.
and going back to what Garrett said and others, if you call it art, it's all fair. Like whatever you want to do, that's art. If you call it photography and you're capturing a single photograph, that's something different. However, I feel like who cares really? Like this whole thing to me just seems kind of silly. So if you want to put something that's AI out there and say this is a real photo, that's something I'd take issue with. But if you've
Oh,
taken
yeah,
a
me
photograph
too.
and you've kind of changed it a little bit, and you call it art, good for you.
So, Phil, what you're saying is actually echoes what Mike Anderson was saying. There's no authority to create and enforce editing rules.
Right.
Like telling photographers that only photojournalistic or documentary styles are valid. Okay, he has a point, and so do you. Okay.
Well,
I did.
and that's Ron, that's true, except, and we haven't talked about this, but if you're in a photography competition, then those kinds of changes, they're a problem.
They are.
You really have an ethical dilemma.
Yeah.
But if you're not presenting that photo for judge, then the sky's the limit on what you can do with it, because you are the creator, not the camera.
Yeah, and I would argue, Tim, there's no dilemma. If you enter a photography contest, whatever the rules say is what you stand by, right? So if you are a person of character and morals and values, you kind of, if they say don't do this, then you don't do it, right?
Well, yeah, but I read all kinds of news articles about photographers who've been caught out,
Well, yeah,
breaking those rules, and everybody's just oohs and ahs over their photo, but it wasn't really a photo,
right. Yeah, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I did have one question here. I don't know if any of us can answer this. I do have an answer that I might stab at, but Ray Schultz asked, are there any tips on avoiding banding in blue skies? Now, my first question to him would be, what camera are you using? Because if he's using a sensor that has the anti-aliasing filter not on it, and a lot of the newer cameras, they took that off of there, that would cause banding in your photographs. Moire, they call it. Okay. David, you got anything to say about that question?
Mechanical shutter seems to work for me. I just shoot mechanical shutter almost all the time.
Yeah, and I would say don't shoot Sony. I love Sony and I love my A7CR, but I see Sony just doesn't do skies very well for whatever reason. Canon, I was out today at the beach shooting with Canon, and the difference between Canon and Sony, as far as the skies go, in my opinion, night and day.
So we have a gentleman in here, T-Bone in the Wild is his name. Welcome to the show, T-Bone. He says that he thinks sky replacement is just another form of art in photography. The way he looks at it is it's the photographer's photo, So who who am I to critique their art? Okay. And that's a very valid statement too. Okay. We do have this in our photo club. I'm sure Double G would re-echo this, but we do not critique photos from people in the photo club unless they specifically ask us to. And then even if somebody asks me to do it, I'm very reluctant because that can be brutal.
If I can interrupt, you mentioned critiquing. I am not a fan of anyone critiquing anything. When you get these people, send me your photos, I'll critique them. You know what?
Yeah.
It's your artwork. This is what I see. This is what I present. If you don't like it, that's fine.
It can ruin somebody.
Absolutely, man. Go out, have fun.
Yeah.
Just enjoy what you're doing. Enjoy the
Yeah.
passion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you say that in your videos too.
After the King, I don't know if you've seen the movie The King's Speech. It's been out a while now, but in that movie, the king is a stutterer. And to sort of help emphasize all that jarring, they would put people on the screen on the wrong side of the rule of thirds. So instead of looking into the empty space, they're looking out. And visually it's jarring. So I was at a class about that time with a guy from Knoxville who was doing a workshop on how to use Lightroom. And they were asking for people to, give a photo for him to look at. And I submitted a picture of one of my grandkids that I'd done in the studio, a portrait for that effect. He was on the wrong side of the camera. He was looking the wrong direction. But I liked the way it looked, but I got chastised severely for not using the rule of thirds, and I didn't offer any more photos for critique.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's almost no way that you can provide constructive feedback, no matter what, because for all of us here, it's very personal, right? And I would assume we're all proud of what we do. And when somebody kind of tells you it's not quite as good as you think it is, that hurts, right? Whether you want to say I can set that aside, I wear my big boy pants, I say that too. It's really difficult for somebody to come in and say, this isn't up to par in this way. However, there are ways that you can do it, and I think you probably have to take some classes on giving good constructive feedback where it's more fact-based. Like it's very, very difficult. And when my friends ask me for feedback, I say it's a great image. And that's about the best I can do.
Yeah, the only time
go ahead. Sorry about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. The only time I think that it's appropriate is if you're actually training somebody in the photography. If you're actually working with somebody, teaching them photography, then I think it's perfectly acceptable to talk about things, okay, that they don't know about, to open their mind up. It's not, there's not a right or a wrong way, but if you see them, let's say they go out, here's a good example. I mean, gear is a big thing with me. Every time I go with somebody, they're lacking a piece of gear that they probably should have had. And the Arca Swiss plate on the bottom of their camera, a polarizer on the front of their lens, and they're out doing waterfall photography with a $50 tripod from Walmart that keeps falling over. So, and I think that kind of instruction is perfectly fine. As far as critiquing, no, I don't think you should unless somebody actually asks you to. Now, Phil Vive says it looks great. If somebody asks me what I think about their image, and I'll ask them, do you really want to hear this? Okay. Are you sure you want to hear this? I want to be friends with you when we get finished. And I'll just make a few comments to maybe help improve their photography going down the road, get them to open their eyes a little bit and look differently at things. Wildlife is different than landscape photography when it comes to this subject. Okay. Us that do landscape photography will shake our head yes to that. Wildlife is a whole different, ball game. Okay, when it comes to critiquing anything. Okay, you're at the mercy of the animal. Okay, and the environment you're in. With landscape photography, you make your environment. You go out and find it and compose it and make it. So, did I miss anybody? Garrett, did I get everybody on that one?
I think you got everybody.
Okay.
Maybe you might have missed Phil because Phil's internet connection was
Did I
dropping
get?
out on
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, Phil, you
I
want?
think I'm back.
I think you're back. He's back.
Yeah, I rebooted my router. I had to go into the other room and say, Heather, I'm rebooting the internet. Don't panic. Yeah, my
I think
upload speed was super slow. Now it's over 300, so we're cool.
it could be. It could be on a glitch down there. Yeah. You want to? You want to take a stab at that? Editing
It's
ethics
been so long,
again.
I forgot the question.
Editing ethics. How do you feel about altering photos, removing branches, trees, or people, the distracting elements, or totally sky replacements?
I think you were talking
I don't
about
like
that
sky
when
replacements.
you last
Otherwise,
froze
do
up.
it. Do it.
Yeah, you were on the sky replacement. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, I mean,
Phil,
if
you've
it makes
talked
your
about
picture
this.
look better, do it. I don't like sky replacement. And if it's a composite, I think you should definitely say, hey, this is a composite. You know, the best picture ever made from Snoopers Rock, if you Google Snoopers Rock and the picture comes up and it's got this amazing sky and it has an amazing inverted cloud below, it's a composite. I know the person who made that picture, it was made on 2 different days. But every time you see one of mine from there, it was made on 1 day. So, but you know, also a panorama, that's a composite. I don't have a problem with those at all. HDR is that's a composite. That's multiple pictures. So anyway, I don't know. But you know what? With I used to do a lot of high dynamic range, but I found that it really doesn't look that much better than just exposing for the highlights. Don't blow the highlights with these modern sensors that we have, and pull the shadows and run it through denoise that we talked about earlier. It's just fine.
Only if you shoot Sony though. With Nikon, come on, you kidding me?
Oh man. Well, you know, I was going to say the
Dang.
Nikon has better dynamic range, but the damn sensors in the Nikon are made by Sony, so
That's
I guess I shouldn't say.
Yeah, but they're doing something special to them sensors. I'm convinced. Yeah, Michael said, "Can you imagine what Ansel Adams would do with Photoshop?"
So, John, I have to
Probably
ask
boost the contrast. That'd be my guess.
your dog's not there anymore, but
No,
what's your
she-
dog's name?
Her name is Crouton. She's deaf,
Crouton.
she's blind,
Oh,
and she loves me. She knows when I walk in a room. And as I'm sitting here, I've done this in video, I've showed in videos too. She wants to be in my lap at all times. And she was just getting antsy, so I took her down to my wife. I know it sounds silly, but you asked. When we go to bed at night, you know, those of us that have kids, my daughter used to lay here on my chest. And she wants to lay on my chest when we go to bed, and she just instantly relaxes, goes to sleep. So that's how we fall asleep.
and it relaxes you as well, right? I have I have 6 cats, so I'm a big fan of animals, and I've got one of them wanting to let me into the office right now, but I'm not going to. But I love to see people with their pets.
Okay, we're going to push in the clutch and switch gears right here. We're going to talk about YouTube and YouTube monetization just for a minute, okay? How important is the money to you? Okay. Let's just start with that, okay? I'm going to go backwards this time. Phil V, how important is monetization and the money to you?
Wait, does YouTube pay you guys? Because I don't know.
Very little.
Yeah.
It's hardly worth our time, okay? I still have to pay for my video and gear.
I do have to say, though, kind of, obviously it was a bit tongue in cheek, but the fact that they pay me even a couple pennies for my videos just kind of makes me chuckle. But other than that, I mean, obviously I'm not depending on this as my retirement income. But it's nice. And actually some of I did a documentary on a local lake around my town, Lake Betts, that I turned the monetization off because I just want people to watch it without commercials. I want them to understand the value of preserving what we have around here and those types of things. But I mean, I have 50 people, 75 people who watch my videos, and I appreciate every single view. And it's just amazing to me that people actually watch my videos to begin with. But as far as
I watch them I watch them for 32 seconds.
Well, I appreciate that. I can see in the analytics, most people watch for a minute or two, but that doesn't matter. The fact that people actually will attempt to at least watch some of my videos, to me, is what really does it. It's not the money is in full transparency, I probably make, I don't know, $15 or $20 a month, something like that. My channel is really small, but it's $15 or $20 a month. I can buy, a burger and fries or whatever. So to me, it's not important,
But
but
they only
it's
pay. They
nice.
only pay. They only pay that. See, you only get paid once a year.
But I actually make
Yeah.
more on Facebook than I do on YouTube, funny enough. And I put much more effort into YouTube than I do Facebook. Facebook, I post my photos, which, obviously I put effort into my photos as well, but I spend much more time on a single video than I do on a single photo. So it's just
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
I still
Um,
don't understand that. He
What
told me
about
that, and I
you?
was like,
Yeah, Phil, we'll talk when we get together next month.
what about you, Gary? What do you? How important is the monetization process to you?
I would say, if you put it on like a 1 to 10 scale, the monetization is going to fall, around a 2 or a 3. And, you know, like, we were just saying is, the value for me from YouTube is the relationships that you create and make, and not only with other photographers. And I don't know if you guys know, I met up with Phil a couple of weeks ago at Snoopers Rock, and it's just doing things like that for me is the value. And the comments and the people that have like hung around, like, there's probably others out there, but I'll name Woody. I think you guys all know him. He's been watching my channel for God knows how many years. And just the relationships that even though it's like pen pals, and you've never met these people face to face, and the odds are you never will. But
You feel connection.
yeah, it's the connection. So the comments and the likes, I don't care about the thumbs up or thumbs down, although that helps the channel. So please,
Give it a thumbs up.
any viewers out there watching, do hit the thumbs up when you can. But that's the only reason those are important. The comments are, to me, are, on that, going back to that same 1 to 10 scale, the comments and feedback, good or bad. Going back to the critique or criticism or whatever, I honestly don't care what people, I enjoy the give and take, and people are entitled to their opinions. And if I try to take something positive out of a negative comment, and I'll go back and forth. I'm not going to be rude or anything like that, but so I'm getting off on a tangent here, but yeah, for me, the value is in the feedback and the comments and the relationships that you build. Uh, full transparency though, I would, I'm trying now, pretty hard, to grow the channel, and would like to, get, more views and earn, if YouTube's gonna pay me a little bit, a month, that, I love it, and I'd like to turn that little bit into a lot of it if possible.
I
But
think
that takes more time than I have right now, which is a little disappointing for me, for frustrating, I guess. But anyway, somebody was jumping in. Go ahead.
I think something has happened since December 31st with YouTube, because I've noticed that the logarithm has changed drastically. You may have a really good video with a really good thumbnail and all the SEO stuff that you want to do in there. And, about 8 hours or 9 hours after you post it, it'll spike. Okay. All of a sudden it'll get 200, 300 views in 1 hour. And that'll go on for about an hour or two. And I think when YouTube realizes that it's not meeting their logarithm standards, they just cut your feet out from underneath you. So I'll see a lot of this up and then straight back down again. And it drives me crazy, because that they served it up for a while and then they decided to turn the light switch off on it. Okay. Now you're just sitting there with, gaining 1 or 2 users a day or views a day or whatever,
But if you sit there and worry about those kinds of things that are outside of your control, you're gonna drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. If you get into YouTube and just for the monetization and trying to make money, I mean, you're in for kind of a rude awakening. Because
No, you are.
You guys have all been doing this for a long time, and when I was with Phil, I mentioned, I don't know if you guys saw this, but I got one of those emails from Creator Corner or whatever it's called in YouTube. And they said only 6% of YouTube channels that are created end up getting monetized, so if you've made it to monetization, that's quite a feat.
Especially a photographer channel.
Yeah.
Phil T, what do you say, Phil?
I like that money.
You like money,
but
show me the money.
I mean, but let me tell you why I like that money, because it's not enough to it's not enough to pay a car payment, unless you're buying a really, really, really junkyard car. It's just the ability to say, hey, I've gone out here and I've done all this work. Every morning on my off day, I get up at at freaking before sunrise, and I go out every single off day, and I do this work that I absolutely love. I love, love, love doing it. And now I get a little bit of cheese, so I can say, hey, at least, it's not just the joy, which it is the joy, because I used to go out every off day and post pictures on Facebook and not get any cheese, and I would still do it. But Phil is getting cheese on Facebook, so we got to work on that.
Yeah, that's pretty
But
cool.
but
I've done it.
now at least I can say, because like my sister, Phil, are you making any money doing this? Well, a little bit of cheese. My headphone fell out, so I don't know if you guys are talking or not. I'm having all sorts of technical difficulties, but yes, I absolutely am happy to be making a little bit of money at it. So sure, and I wish everybody was making some money doing it.
How about you, David?
Mine has plateaued. Like the last 5 years or so, I've made like $45 a month, and so it's been going into a savings account at the bank. You got to direct deposit it. So like once every 2 or 3 months, $100 goes in there, and I've just been letting it accumulate. Because it's so little money, I don't even notice it. I spend more than that on a tank of gas in my truck to go take photos. So,
Did I hear you say one time that you gave that money away?
It is earmarked for scholarships at the high school, but that I don't know if that's going to happen this year. I've talked to the people that are supposed to be doing it, and they seem to be dragging their feet. So I don't know. But it's sitting there. Like I said, I ain't spent it. But the point is like, I'm doing it anyway. Like Phil, I like to make the videos. And it's fun to make the videos for some reason. Some days I just ain't feeling it, and I just want to go take pictures. And so I don't make a video that day. But for the most part, I like to make the video. It's different from going and doing photography. You don't go and make a YouTube video and do photography. No, you go to make a YouTube video. You got to make sure everybody in this group knows that. And it took me a while to learn that. I was very frustrated for a very long time, but yeah, and in the beginning, I kind of wanted it to like be a stream of income to where I was making money doing it. But the longer I've done it, the less I've the less I worry about that. And I just do it because of whichever one of these guys said, the community. I think it was Garrett. But yeah, the community is more valuable to me now. And you guys, I wouldn't have met you guys. I mean,
Right.
That's right.
COVID brought us all together. So
I think the only one of y'all I would have met was Ron. I think because Ron I knew from waterfall photography on Facebook, but I don't think I knew any of the rest of you guys.
Yeah, this was Phil's introduction on Facebook Messenger. Hey. And I went, okay, who's this?
This broke the ice, didn't it?
I was reluctant to answer. I said, okay, who is this? He just went, hey. He remembers it.
I actually don't remember that, but I do remember that the reason why I wanted to meet you is because you knew where all the waterfalls were.
That's what he told me. Yeah. Yeah. It was the very first message he ever sent me, just said, hey. Tim, you're the big hero here on YouTube.
Yeah, whatever. You know, I've had the Tim Childers photography channel. I've had that for years. It wasn't a photography channel. And I sort of repurposed it. I had about 600 subscribers, none of which were watching my videos. And so when I went to photography, I had a goal of becoming monetized. I had no idea what that meant. I just knew what I needed to do to get there. And I wasn't getting there. And so when I started the New Retired Me channel a year and a half ago, and I went from 43 subscribers after the first week to 25,000 subscribers after a month, I was like, holy crap. I kept sending screenshots to Ron and to Phil and like, are you watching this? And so now that channel has about 64,000 subscribers. So when I was doing 2 videos a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would make between $1,000 and $1,200 a month. And it was absolutely, well, with the other 2 channels, it was wearing me out, even as being retired. So I cut that to 1 video a week. I only post on Thursdays. Occasionally I might throw something else in if I have something interesting. And that cut the monetization in half right off the bat. So this past month I made about $520 or something. The Life in Motion Diaries channel, I didn't do anything with that channel. I set myself a goal of filming video only with my iPhone and putting 1 video up a day, every day for a year. I didn't advertise it. I didn't talk about it, but because it's tied to my other channel through Google AdSense, YouTube started sending it out to my subscribers. Like, so, now I've got almost 2,000 subscribers there. And when I cut back to 3 videos a week instead of 7, that cut that revenue down to about $75 a month. My photography channel on a good month makes $25. So, I went through the little time where I was like, how much money can I make this month? And then pretty soon that got old. It is game-like. It's very much game-like, but I don't rely on the money. It paid for a trip to London and it's paid for this kitchen remodel, but I don't rely on the money. I don't need it to live. That's why when I do affiliate videos, I put all that money into a grant program and we give that money away. So yeah, it's when I held up my hand to say 0 when you asked the question, because if I was not monetized, I would still make the videos.
Mm-hmm.
I would still do what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. John.
It's not about the money. It's wonderful to have that as a tax write-off and be able to rent gear and write it off. It's a fantastic write-off, but I truly enjoy and appreciate those that let me share my nonsense, my photography with them. I do this because I love it. And I say that, thanks for letting me share my nonsense with you. If you have questions, my email's down there. Ask me. I'll tell you anything. I'll help you any way I can. And I've met up with other people. Here, borrow my stuff. Take my stuff. Yes, I do enjoy sharing. And to me, that's what it's about. It's the sharing. And I've met, again, wonderful people out there. I love meeting people. It's about the sharing. I'd do it even if I wasn't making much, and I'm not making much. It's enough for a tax write-off.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the tax burden can be a pain in the butt too sometimes. You know, especially like when you're on just pure Social Security, like me, any income I make is considered employment income. I have to pay taxes on it now that I'm not employed anymore. So I had to pay taxes on my YouTube monetization I got last year, which was not a lot. You know, it was like $1,200 for the whole year, but and I was still working. Okay, so and of course it goes against your Social Security too, somewhat. Anyways, I'm not even into the monetization stuff much anymore.
Yeah,
I
I don't
had
want
to read.
any of it for money. I'm not doing
Yeah.
anything. I don't want to do gigs for money because then
Yeah.
it's work, right?
Yeah, it
I
is.
because it's just a passion.
Mhm. So we're running out of time with the other topics. I don't think I'm going to be able to get it all done tonight. Okay, we may have to wait to episode 5. But I do, if you'll bear with me about 10 more minutes, I do have one question or one thing I'd like to talk about that I think is dear to several of us on here. And maybe it could be dear to some of us that aren't into this street photography type stuff. But I want to talk about the artistic side of walking around photography. Call it what you want: street photography, urban photography, outdoor photography, whatever. You know, from the artistic side of it, are we out doing documentation for historical purposes? Are we out looking for scenes and different ways that we would see things that and show our photography to people who don't see it in the way we see it? Panning blurs and things like that. So what I want to find out is some ethics of capturing certain scenes. Okay. How do you feel about? I'm gonna zero right in on David Sailors right here. Okay. Yeah. I'm just gonna ask you the question, and let's see if anybody wants to rebuttal. Okay. What are your feelings about shooting from the hip?
Now, when you say that, do you literally mean waist level viewfinder shooting?
I'm talking about stealth shooting. Yeah.
Oh,
Sneaking around
stealth.
shooting.
I don't stealth shoot. I'm 6'2". There's no way I can do that.
You
So,
sure? Because I think you're 6'3".
Yeah, Phil. I think Phil's taller than me. I'm pretty sure.
Well, he might be. I think you're taller than me.
Yeah, Phil's 6'3". Yeah.
All right.
But
Yeah, see,
but I will shoot from the waist, but it's for perspective. I'm not trying to hide what I'm doing or whatever, or trying to be low key or what have you. I normally don't tend to photograph people directly anyway. If I include people, it's part of the scene. I'm normally the guy who wants to I'm shooting the cityscape, not just like I am absolutely not trying to do Bruce Gildan stuff or any of that New York street photography. That's just not my speed.
no.
I tried it for a while. It's just not me. But I will include people if they're like, if I'm trying to photograph a particular building and there's people around it, I might wait till they're walking and try to get them in a position, like a specific pose while they're walking, instead of like where they're both their feet together and they're leaning and it looks like they're tripping. That don't look right. So I might try to get them with their gait, with their feet separated so they look like they're walking. But that'll be the extent of it.
They're part of the scene.
Yeah, I'm not photographing it to try and get just the person.
They're walking through the scene.
Yeah, they're interacting in the environment.
Mm.
I'm after the entire environment, not just the person.
Mm. So, have you done any in the past when you first started doing this? Had you done any people where you asked permission?
Yeah.
Their photograph?
And to this day, I will ask for a portrait at times. You can ask Ray Soldano. I scared him to death asking people when me and him was walking around because for whatever reason, when Ray's with me, all these really interesting people wander out onto the street. And like there was this guy with a really cool shit jacket and a hat, and he was just outside the coffee shop with me. And I was like, dude, can I make your portrait? And he's like, sure. You know, he was on the phone talking to me, and I made this picture right there.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But yeah. Oh, look, Phil's going to win the points with Phil.
That's my kitty.
Do you, David? Do you zone focus?
I have at times, but most of the time I don't because I'm focusing on the building usually. So I'll zoom in critical focus because I'm shooting usually with a manual lens almost always. And then the people walk through it. Now I will get artsy at times and I'll slow the shutter down to where they'll blur the people or something like that. I like to do panning blur photos because I think it's fun, you know. But that's about the only reason I do panning blurs because I think it's fun, not because I'm trying to do something particular. I just
Speaking of panning blurs, what is your when you do something like that? What is your normal shutter speed?
I have shot the slowest one that I ever landed was 1/15 of a second. But I think me and Phil are pretty close together, about 1/40th, 1/60th. It seems to work really well. You get more keepers that way. You know, the longer that shutter's open, the better your chances are of not matching the speed of the vehicle or whatever. But
Right.
yeah, that's about 1/40th, 1/30th is usually where I kind of live.
How about you, Tim? You like to rebuttal on anything David said there?
No, not really. I mean, just for me, if I'm in a place where photographing a person makes sense, I will wait it out for somebody to walk into my scene. But most of the time, I'm just looking for interesting shapes or interesting shadows. And again, I'm probably going to manipulate those to make it darker than it was or brighter maybe than it was. But I mean, my philosophy about photography is my basic philosophy about life. I generally just don't like people, and so, so I don't like photographing them.
That's why I shoot wildlife.
Garrick, you shoot street photography in a big city.
I
Now,
do. I love street.
down here in small town Tennessee, it can be intimidating to be a street photographer. Okay, people are always looking at you like, "What are you doing?" They're not used to seeing this. Okay, they're not used to seeing somebody walk around. And I'm not talking about Chattanooga because Chattanooga is a big town to me. But where I live in Crossville, it's a small town, and when you walk around town with a camera, people will look at you. Okay, well, the cops don't.
Ron, I've had people in Trenton when I'm walking around in Trenton actually come up to me and ask me why I'm taking pictures. Like accusatorially, not just curious. Like what are you taking pictures for? Seriously,
Right.
like, yeah.
What do you normally tell?
And Dave and I walked around Rossville, Georgia, a long time ago, and we got that same thing. It's like I was expecting banjo music to start playing somewhere.
That guy at that garage, he was sweating while we was up there taking pictures.
Camera pointed in my direction,
Yeah, but up there in the big town, Garrick, it's probably common practice to see somebody walk around with a camera up there.
Yeah, and I shoot a lot of small towns around me as well, little farm communities, and it's it's a lot different when you're walking through the streets of Chicago. People are so tuned into whatever they're doing, whatever they've got going on in their day. It doesn't even register that I have a camera. But when I'm in the small towns, everybody stops and asks, hey, what you doing? What's going on? And why are you doing this? And so But yeah, I've fallen in love with street photography, and going back, I think, to the original question, I definitely shoot from the hip, especially well, I guess either more so, honestly, more so in Chicago. I'll shoot from the hip.
You're using your D850, aren't you? Well, that's the only camera you have.
Yeah, occasionally I take the D500 because I think that focuses just a little bit faster.
Mhm.
But mostly with the D850 for sure.
So what happened at Navy Pier? Why did the security guard tell you you couldn't do that?
That's a good question. I was like the only person there. I was the only person dumb enough to be out on Navy Pier. I think that was in February, and it was like freezing out, and the place is covered in snow and ice, and I'm just walking around shooting pictures of the lighthouse that's out there right off Navy Pier, and just minding my own business. And literally, I was like the only person around, and this guy comes out of nowhere and says, "Hey, you're not supposed to have a tripod, and this, that, the other thing." It's like I think he was okay with me taking pictures, just the tripod was an issue.
Hmm.
And I certainly didn't. Luckily, I was there early enough. I flew my drone, and I'm sure that was illegal. Um, but I was there earlier than his workday must have started when I flew the drone, so he didn't catch me doing that, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Phil T, you do both. Well, you do everything. You do wildlife, landscape, street. How do you feel when you go out and do your street photography? Are you uh,
I like to get people, and I like to get people facing me if possible. And sometimes I'll go out and I'll start out and I'm just not feeling it, and I'm done. But lately, the last few times I've gone out, which have been spaced out pretty good. Like I can do bird photography twice a week, but street photography, especially if I'm trying to get people facing me, I need to do it probably at most every couple of weeks. But I like to get people, but I also like, shapes and contrasts and all that stuff. I just like photography, man. Whatever. If I can get something in my frame that's interesting, then I'll try to shoot it. But when Dave and I were out the other day, a week or so ago, I had my camera way up high and I was taking a picture of what was that place? The stove place, David?
Yeah, Lookout Mountain Stove Company.
Yes, I was taking a picture of that building, and I had my camera way up high with my screen tilted down, with looking at the level, trying to get it level. And as I was getting my shot set up, here comes this lady walking across in front of the building, and she had a stroller with a kid in it, and she had one kid huddled up beside the stroller walking, and another kid huddled up to her leg as she's passing in front of that. And anyway, I'm really happy with that picture. And I wasn't even trying to get people. I was trying to take a picture of a building, but having the people in it, I think, helped it. So I'm excited about that. But I don't like to come up and stick a camera right in somebody's face. I don't like that
No.
at all.
Mm-mm.
That's not my thing. As a matter of fact, I've had some comments, or at least one comment on a video, of a street photography video, where the person said, your subject, the person, the figure, as some street photographers call it needs to be larger in the frame. And I'm like, no, I want the environment.
Mhm.
If it's just a picture of a person, then that's
Mhm.
not interesting to me. But a picture of the person standing in a city where you can see the city and wonder how that person is feeling in that environment at that anyway, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, sorry about that comment, Phil. I didn't really mean it.
That wasn't you.
No, it wasn't.
So and so.
Well, for John and Phil Vignola, you guys are mostly into the wildlife scene, but have either one of you gone out and done urban type architectural street photography? Any of that?
I do a ton of it actually. I used to have an Instagram called Bull City Pictures. I don't publish it a lot, but I go out to shoot. So I live in Durham, North Carolina. I think it's probably 300,000 people, something like that. So it's a medium-sized city, very interesting city. So if you look up Durham, North Carolina, there's a lot of interesting facts about Durham, the whole Bull Durham connection, the Durham Bulls playing there. It's going through this kind of renaissance. It's a very interesting city. And I will go out and shoot primarily things in the city, things being like buildings and architecture. I don't focus on people, but inevitably in a city of that size, you're going to get people in the photos. But my Bull City pictures, Instagram, I deleted because, well, anyway. But I do a lot of that. I have done a lot of that in the past, just probably not maybe in the last year or so. And I just like going out there and shooting interesting scenes. And if people happen to be in the scene, that's great. And in Durham, I mean, if I point my camera at somebody and they're walking by, they're probably not going to say anything. If I get in their face, like Phil said, nobody wants anybody in their face, but I've never had anybody come to me and say, "Why are you taking my picture?" And I've taken thousands of pictures of people, but nobody's ever really noticed. I think uh, Garrick might have said it. People are just so self-absorbed and they're just kind of going about their business, and a lot of times they won't pay attention in the bigger cities. Not that Durham's a huge city, but it's big enough that people are kind of just trying to get to work or wherever they're going to they don't really worry about people pointing cameras in their face.
How about you, John? Do you do any of that kind of photography?
It's not my thing. It's not one of my strong suits. I have wandered around downtown Los Angeles, as dangerous as it is, super early in the morning. In fact, one of the photos that I've made the most on Adobe stock, it was one I was just walking across the street and I just happened to go click, and it was nothing. And when I say a lot of money, maybe I've made a couple of dollars on it. But no, it's not really my thing. I've liked standing on overpasses early in the morning, getting the motion blur of the cars. But I'm a wildlife guy, and or maybe moons and stars and stuff like that.
And you've never heard a bird say anything about you taking its photo, right? I'm pretty sure of that because I've never heard a bird say anything about it. But
no, and it's funny is when I'm out talking to, I'll actually talk to the birds. I was shooting the seals and going, man, thank you guys for posing for me. Thank you.
I always try to, my joke is they don't take direction very well. So I'm always trying to, Phil, you probably do the same thing. I'm always trying to give them direction. Just come over here, buddy, pose, turn your head to the right, and never really works out that way.
Lift your chin a little bit. Look over here.
Yeah. Let's see that catch light. Come on, catch light.
I interrupted. I interrupted two house sparrows having sex yesterday.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
you did.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. And I just happened to be sitting in the window with the camera when they did it. So I've never witnessed that before. I got a few comments here, and then we're going to quit. Joe, he said in Dublin, he at one time he had somebody come up and caution him about pickpockets. It's never been confrontational though. He also said to David, in smaller towns, the police can be interested in what you're doing if you're not a local. I don't know how they determine if you're a local or not, but I've walked around downtown Crossville and crossed the street with my camera on my side with a police officer wouldn't even look at me. Okay. So I figured he might, wonder what I was doing about 7 o'clock at night, walking around by the police department.
It's funny.
That's my favorite place to go. That's my favorite block to go photograph is where the police department is.
So getting back to that Dublin comment. So in Dublin, I was there for work and I actually did street photography. So I'm in Dublin. It's cool. I've never been there before. And I took a photo of a gentleman, 3 people walking, and they had their luggage. I just thought it was cool. They're walking down this random sidewalk and the guy stared me down. I thought he was probably about a second away from crossing the street and coming towards me. He didn't, but he had that look on his face. I could see it in the photos too. It's like, I don't know what he was thinking, but he was clearly unhappy with the fact that I was taking a photo of him.
Yeah. Tim sent me a video this morning of a guy over in England, and he talked about that. And he just walks. He keeps walking. He keeps moving. Like if somebody makes eye contact with you and you're taking a photograph and they see you or and they start to say, look like they're going to come say something, just keep walking. They won't follow you is what he said. Just keep moving. Don't stop.
I did keep moving.
So also too, Terrell has a very good one here. He says, be mindful of the Amish and some Native Americans. They don't like having their pictures taken no matter what. That's true. Very true. You got to watch that. So anyways, that's it for tonight. I'm going to save the rest of these for episode 5. I'll have to redo another show to do the rest of it. I didn't get everything, but I want to thank everybody for being here on YouTube tonight, and for the comments on YouTube, and for our new contestant, Johnny Pink.
That was on the spot, man.
What do
Thank
we-
you.
Hey, tell me what we got for him tonight. What did he win? We'll send him a new lens or something.
How about a round ship of friendship? That's what I win.
Yeah, that's it. All right.
Fine for me. I'm happy with that.
And
Well, you
I will say this group has been so supportive, and I appreciate the support. And John, I'm PhotoGear fan. I don't know. I've commented on your photos a while ago, but I've enjoyed your videos for a while, and just the support from this community right here of the folks that we're talking with tonight has been phenomenal. I appreciate. I want everybody to know. I may not have said it. I appreciate the support. And I know
do?
you're watching videos.
You really do.
I do.
You really do.
Really do.
That makes my heart feel good. Okay.
Do you know Ron?
No, we've never met. Yeah, I never met. I'll get around to it. Okay. I'll get around to it. All right. I'll go over there someday, and I'm gonna go over there and shoot bird with him someday.
That's right. I keep telling Phil to come over, but I guess Durham, North Carolina is not like a destination for a lot of people. But if you happen to be there, look me up.
There's no roller coasters there.
That's true, but there are the Durham Bulls, and you can see where
Right.
Bull Durham was filmed. And
Bull Durham Bulls. I like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
All right, guys. Listen, we're gonna get off here now, and thanks for coming along. We'll do another one of these in the future, and I'm glad everybody was able to make it tonight. And see you guys off of YouTube, and see y'all later off of there. And now, as always, let me